Whether you're covering your team's push or making one of your own, the diversity of this rifle says you're covered either way. Hi, Six Snipes here, trying to finish up this season of Gun Guide that I started ages ago before I have to cover the next set of weapons. I've had a couple of requests for this one in particular, and I confess that of the many guns I haven't covered, next to the one that we're all thinking about, this might just be the one that's had the longest time coming. Covering today another one of the wondrous picks of the rifleman class, of which we have no shortage of. We'll be examining a study of whether the scale of the payload outweighs the volume of another. In other words, fellas, does size matter? Taking a look at the G3A3, I'm Six Snipes, and you're watching Gun Guide. The G3, or else Gewehr 3, which in German translates to Gun 3, very creative, despite appearances, is actually way more of an oldie than one with a first glance might believe. Rather obviously, it's developed by German small arms manufacturer Heckler & Koch, per its appearance rather in line with that of the HK-33 and MP5s, which were both so favored anywhere between the films of the 80s and the 90s. However, most wouldn't guess it significantly predates both, via development and collaboration with the Spanish state-owned design and development agency Centro de Estudios Técnicos de Materiales Especiales, all the way back in the 1950s.
¿Cómo está? Me llamo de biblioteca, es mucho gracias, en mi programa es Ethan Eichen Aufen Ethan Aufen.
It's not very surprising given its likeness to many of the late German firearms of the Second World War, which would usher in an age of quote-unquote assault rifles with the obvious
Sturmgewehr,
as well as
Maschinenkarabiner-Gerät 06,
both chambered in a new advanced caliber of 7.92x33 Kurs, the latter of which would be a direct ancestor of the G3.
You are my dad. You're my dad. Wookie, wookie, wookie.
Much like the MP5, its latter SMG equivalent, the gun would integrate a closed-bolt roller-delayed blowback system, providing some of the finest first-shot accuracy on the market, which kept it there as the various German military's standard squeeze until being replaced by a gun I'm going to have a video on by the end of the week. 3 guesses which. Further similarities are, of course, the classical twist and select iron sights that HMK still uses, but do not translate to a video game well at all. That, as well as an overall profile that screams, I'm an MP5, but my bullet is huge, and if it shot as fast as one, maybe we'd actually like it. That's right, this one's got the 7.62x54 308 equivalent NATO cartridge, a step up from the 5.56 you'd expect in most weapons handed out to basic infantry, but as is the case throughout the entirety of all known history, it's a very safe assumption that the Krauts are packing better weapons than you are. Directly higher caliber than every other rifleman class weaponry on the security side, in fact. Making this piece the go-to for anyone who wishes to make each and every one of the cowardly incels sincerely regret not spending the single credit on their shitty Wish.com armor. The 7.62 NATO is pretty much the same as what's in the Mark 15 and M240B minus the AP or armor-piercing keyword, meaning it may not one-shot every time like the M110 might, but if they're not wearing armor, well, they're shit out of luck. Say what you will alongside many others about the fire rate with a 500 rounds per minute, making a stark contrast to other options, but it's not as if the second bullet you possibly need to level a target is going to take all that much longer, especially at range, and range is exactly where you want to be using this because as well as being a gun for the troops, it has a rather extensive history of being fielded as a very formidable sniper rifle. They say there's only 2 marksmen per team in push. Well, with this and a ghillie suit, I'm more than happy to make those people look downright silly. Then the ability to toggle off to full auto makes you more than able to engage on closer fronts with the irons on your optic. That full auto isn't too bad either, not with the way the recoil is at least. By my estimation, it's just a slightly better SCAR, which checks out considering you pay a bit more too. And with any recoil mitigation attachment, it's nigh intangible. I told myself that for the sake of the video I'd try to make plays, but when it's so much easier to just sit back and watch your team potato the objective for all 5 waves and score kills and Overwatch yourself, it's genuinely more entertaining going for the latter. That being said, it's not exactly like there's an underwhelming utility when you knock off the scope. Right at close quarters, it's more than able to push into buildings and defend vital angles when the stakes quite frankly couldn't be higher in spite of its rather long barrel profile, and whether I won or lost games, most mostly lost, mind you, I found that in spite of this not being one of the meta side of things, it's a very fun gun. In terms of attachments, I like the aesthetic of the classical irons, but they gotta go. I like the holographic, and spending the extra credit on the toggle magnifier really adds an extra element of tactical versatility in Sandstorm far more than any other game, and especially with this. The logical and extreme end of continuation to that is that the combo sight, like with the ACOG, makes you a dominant force if you have the cash to shell out for credits for that, on top of the hefty for the gun already is. Must have something to do with the ammo shortage.
You know why having sponsors is so rad? Because right now, while ammo is like $3 per round,
that big bullet doesn't just kill quick either. It's perfectly capable of getting the job done without landing a single direct hit, and instead relying on glitchy ass penetration and ricochet physics. This exactly comes in handy a lot more than you think, and really did some wacky stuff when I genuinely didn't expect more than, I don't know, disappointment. My personal loadout looked like the Goofy Goober Midnight skin, a very selectively effective pick which is only invisible to, I don't know, Helen Keller. Meanwhile, loading grip makes the mag swap slightly more tolerable, and believe me, with 20 rounds and no optional extended mag in any PvP mode, you'd really want that when you run out. And as always, switching to a secondary is faster than reloading, and can almost help sometimes against some of the more aggressive players. Dude, this is the Resident Evil boss fight. The most entertaining part about this gun might be people's adamant stance that it's just the worst or something, and then probably pitching a hissy fit when they get clapped in half at point blank by Mr. Steal Your RPG. Further annoying is the fact that the alternate Hunter camo is actually very good, paired with literally anything vaguely resembling camouflage, and really lets you follow up the sloppiest shit you ever seen with literally turning invisible. Overall, the gun's an absolute classic that's seen more decades than I have cool free cosmetics, and despite not being another top tier shredder, I use it more than I have any right to. With literally every other rifleman gun for security chambering 5.56, this is definitely a breath of air, at least when you're joining a game and literally all of the special classes are taken and you want to be different from the rest, and definitely most imposing in those long range modes everyone keeps insisting on playing. Locked, loaded, and most importantly accomplishing steps 1 and 2 with a very technical slap. This one makes the heat of a battle feel like a little healthy target practice. And as always, thanks for watching. I'm going to be back sooner than you think, covering the one that you've already probably posted a comment about, so don't worry if you haven't clicked on that post button. Slap all that fun shit down below if you want to see that, or inevitably a man-child having a mental breakdown over basic video games.
Tarkov makes me want to slit my wrists.
But until then, I'm Six Snipes, and this has been the G3A3. You've been watching Gun Guide, and I'll be seeing you out there in Sandstorm.
Oh, you're over here.
Yeah, I'm back here. I don't know, Chief. You just shoot at me? You just... No!